Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. This is part two of the new woody plants for the 2026 season for K&A Greenhouse. We do also have part one, which goes through A through G. This is listed in terms of Latin name, not common name, just for reference. So we like H through Z here. We will be going through hydrangeas and caria, things like that. So why don't you come on and join me? All right, first one for us here is the Hydrangea Candy Bell Bubblegum. On our list on the website, it's just called Hydrangea Bubblegum. But this one is somewhat similar to the Incredible Blush. I was not able to get the Incredible Blush in this season, but this one has the kind of lighter pink flowers, only 3 feet by 3 feet, so it's a little bit shorter, but that's never a bad thing, is finding a 2 or 3 foot plant. This one also flowers on new wood, so you can cut it back like you would Annabelle hydrangeas or Incredible hydrangeas, and you won't be cutting off the flower buds for that season. Hardiness zone on this one is 4 through 9, so we should be good here in Madison area, and honestly, most of Wisconsin is either 4 or 5 at this point. Part shade to full shade is what I've found is best. Sometimes people are able to get them to grow in full sun. The smooth hydrangeas like this one are a little bit more sun tolerant than some of the other ones, but they do need quite a bit of water, especially the first 3 to 5 years as they get established. If they don't get enough water, you will definitely notice the leaves will start to kind of wilt and flop. They'll also turn either yellow or brown as they're not getting enough nutrients and water up into the leaves. The smooth hydrangeas are also walnut tolerant. I have a couple of Annabelles, I have Flowerful, and I have Incredible all kind of hanging out underneath a lot of my walnut trees. So definitely tolerant of the juglone. They're also rabbit and deer resistant, so that's always a positive, especially if you're living in Middleton, which I hear has horrible rabbit problems. They will tolerate wetter sites. They don't usually do well in dry or hot areas. So east side or southeast side, if you have something like that, west side tends to dry them out too quickly. They're also salt tolerant. I have one of my Incredible Blush actually right next to the sidewalk, which we do use environmentally friendly salt, but it doesn't seem to affect that plant in any possible way. So this is a nice new one for us this year. If you are kind of getting sick of the white flowers, you can always go with this pink one. Second new hydrangea for us this year is a hydrangea macrophylla type called Centennial Ruby. This one is coming to us from Monrovia in honor and celebration of their 100th anniversary this year. So I've not actually seen the flowers in person. I don't know how ruby red the flowers actually will be versus pink, but it's supposed to be a kind of a dark red, like you see in this photo here. Hydrangea macrophyllas bloom on old wood and new wood. For us here in Wisconsin, the flower buds sometimes get frozen off in the winter, or more likely in the late spring frost and snowfalls that we tend to get in April. So you may end up waiting for the flowers just a little bit longer than if we were on either of the coasts, which is the case for most of the hydrangea macrophyllas. Hardiness zone on this one is actually 4 to 9, which is really nice for a macrophylla. Part sun to full shade. Monrovia also says you can grow it in full sun, but I would probably assume it's the same as a lot of the other hydrangeas where you need to give it a lot of water the first few years to get it established, so it doesn't burn. This hydrangea is not juglone tolerant, also not rabbit and deer resistant, so you will have them munching on this particular shrub. This one also tolerates moist sites, but it does not like standing water. It tends to get root rot if it does end up in like a standing water kind of situation. But they are salt tolerant, so you can put these along driveways and sidewalks if you use salt. So this one, if you do want to prune it, I generally recommend hydrangea macrophyllas are pruned in September, October, so that when they set their buds for the next season, you're not cutting off those buds for the following spring and summer. Right, third new hydrangea for this year is a panicle hydrangea, which is a full sun hydrangea. Prefers 6 hours or more of sun per day. It can handle 4 to 6 hours. It can even handle that western sun, the really hot, dry sun. This one is a little guy too. So this one is 2 to 3 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet wide at mature size. It will first start blooming with the white flowers and then will fade to what you can see here, the kind of dusty pink color as the season progresses. This one will also bloom on new wood, so you can go ahead and prune this one as long as it's dormant all winter long into the spring until the leaves start to come out. Hardiness on this one is also 3 to 8, so pretty much all of Wisconsin should be okay to grow this one. Panicle hydrangeas are also not walnut tolerant, so I would keep this one away from any walnut, butternut trees, anything in that family. This one will tolerate moist sites, but it is more of a drought tolerant type of hydrangea shrub. But it won't complain too much if you put it in more of a wetter site. This one I'm thinking we'll probably end up replacing Bobo at some point, just because after Bobo is done flowering, the flower heads turn brown and the plant is not all that vigorous, so we get a lot of customers that aren't unhappy with it. So I'm hoping Dragon Baby can be that 2 to 3 foot little one that you can rely on to look good all season long. This one also is a salt tolerant plant, so this is another one that you could put kind of in the front of your house, by the sidewalk, or along the driveways. Another smooth hydrangea for this year. This is Incrediball Stormproof. So we've always had the Incrediball and the Incrediball Blush for probably the last at least 5 years, probably more. The breeders have realized that Incrediball is not going to stand up in those heavy thunderstorms that we get. So this one has been bred to have even thicker stems than Incrediball and Annabelle. So it's supposed to hold those flowers up a little bit better in the storms. This particular plant, like the other smooth hydrangea, it is rabbit and deer resistant. It also tolerates those wetter soils. Not super drought tolerant, doesn't really like a lot of hot air, like the west side doesn't really like a lot of the hot sites. But if you give it enough water, it can tolerate full sun. It does prefer like part shade or full shade. So 4 hours, maybe 5 hours or less a day of sun. Hardiness on this is 3 to 8, and the height on this is just a little bit shorter than the Incrediball. It's supposed to max out around 4 feet, where the Incrediball maxes out around 5 feet. So it's just a little bit smaller than the original Incrediball. And this one also is walnut tolerant, so you can plant this under or around butternut or black walnut trees also. All right, our last new hydrangea that isn't totally a new hydrangea. We actually had some at the end of the season last year. This one is a panicle hydrangea called Spring Sizzle. It's one of those medium-sized ones that will be about 4 to 6 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide at mature size. Flowers come out white, cone-shaped, and then they kind of fade to almost a hot pink, like a very bright pink, and then they fade to what you can see right above me, which is more of that kind of old-fashioned, kind of almost mauve color. The hardiness zone on this one is 3 to 8 again, so it's very hardy. It's a full sun plant, prefers 6 hours or more. It can handle 4 to 6 hours. If you give it any less than 4 hours, it won't flower very well for you. It'll be very floppy. The twigs won't be very strong. This one is one of them that's not walnut tolerant, so try to keep it away from the walnuts. Also not deer and rabbit resistant, so you will have to keep this fenced or sprayed if you have some of those critters that like to eat your shrubs. It is cell tolerant. It is also heat tolerant, so you can put this one west side of the house if you have that really hot and dry spot. But I will also say this one, as with most hydrangeas, you'll need to water them really well the first 3 to 5 years as they get established. and then once they're established, they do a lot better for themselves. But hydrangeas always prefer more water than not, so just make sure you're giving them that 1.5 inches each week if Mother Nature doesn't help you out with that. All right, so we have a new to us Japanese rose this year. This has actually been on the market for quite a while, but I just haven't been able to find it. This one is going to have those same golden yellow flowers. It just doesn't flower quite as much as our golden guinea variety that we've sold for quite a while now. The big seller for this one is the variegated foliage. It gives it a very nice airy appearance. It almost looks like it's flowering white in the shade garden. This one will grow full sun to full shade, so if you have a really shady spot, it'll be fine. It just won't grow quite as fast as if you put it in a sunnier spot. But either way, it will do just fine. This one also tolerates kind of moist, wet sites. I wouldn't put it in standing water, but it should be okay in like a rain garden kind of setting. And then this one, oddly enough, also will tolerate drought and heat. So it's a pretty versatile plant. It takes pruning really well too. You just kind of have to be careful and make sure you don't prune it in June when the flowers are out, unless you don't like the flowers, in which case you can prune it whenever you have time. Hardiness zone on this one is going to be 4 to 9. So again, here in Wisconsin, should be okay for most of us. And it's a shorter one, so Golden Guinea tends to be about 5 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide, where Picta is going to be more of a 2 to 3 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide instead. Right, another new tree for us this year is the tupelo or black gum tree. The variety is Firestarter. This one's kind of a columnar, pyramid-shaped growing habit. It's going to be about 35 feet tall at maturity, but only about 10 to 15, maybe 17 feet wide. And that's more towards the base instead of at the top part where it's going to, go to that pyramid shape. So it's going to be skinnier at the top. This is a nice replacement if you have a lot of Japanese beetles and you like the look of a linden tree, but the Japanese beetles also like the look of a linden tree. So this one won't be eaten quite as much as the linden trees will. You can see in the right hand photo, that is the fall color on it. It gets a very nice bright red, kind of almost orangey red fall color. Otherwise it has very glossy green leaves all summer long. Full sun to part sun is best for this. It is a little bit touchier, so it's hardiness zone 5 to 9. I've had a tupelo in my gardens for about 2 seasons now, so it does take a little bit to get established. I think it's put on 2 inches of growth each year, so don't expect it to be like a autumn blaze maple. The first couple of years it just takes a bit for the roots to get established before it'll start to show any kind of real growth on it. I will say the deer do like to eat it in the winter, so I have to make sure to spray it quite a bit every month or so with Repelzol, and that tends to keep them away. If I do forget about it, then the tips get nipped off of them in the winter as they get kind of desperate for food. It is a drought tolerant plant once it gets established. It's also jugloan tolerant, so I do have it kind of on the edge of my woods, so it gets basically part sun for me. So it has quite a bit of exposure to a lot of different black walnut trees, so definitely can attest that it is walnut tolerant as well. All right, we have a new potentilla. We've had Pink Beauty for a very long time. That one will get 3 to 4 feet tall. This one is called Happy Face Hearts. It is only supposed to be 1 to 2 feet tall and about the same width, maybe 2 feet instead of 1 for width. But the flowers are still that kind of pink daisy-like flowers. Hardiness zone is 2 to 7, so anywhere here in Wisconsin we can grow it. Full sun to part sun, it flowers best in full sun. Part sun is okay yet as long as you give it 4 hours or more. It also can handle the western side, so the hot sun at the end of the day, as long as you give it enough water. I have seen some that don't do well if they don't get the every 3 to 4 day waterings of 1.5 inches per week that they need. But once they get established, they're pretty heat and drought tolerant. They're also salt tolerant. You can see in the photo it's next to a walkway, if you do decide to salt your sidewalks or your driveways in the winter, it can handle that kind of environment. Potentilla are not jugloan tolerant, so you want to keep this away from any butternut or black walnut trees you have on your property or near your property. And for the most part, potentilla are deer and rabbit resistant. They will, if they're very desperate, they will eat them, but I very rarely have seen that happen in the landscape, so that's an added bonus as well. All right, we have another weeping cherry tree. These seem to be coming back into style. We've had a lot of people purchase the snow fountains with the white flowers. Thought I'd give this one a try. It's more of a lighter pink, it's a pink bud that opens up to a lighter pink flower basically. They are double flowers instead of the single like the snow fountains has. They will bloom in May, right around the same time as the crabapple trees will flower as well. This one also has a weeping habit, which is kind of nice because it's able to fit into landscapes a little bit better. Mature size is going to be about 10 feet, maybe 15 feet at maturity, depending on if you give it more of a protected spot or not. It can actually still get to be 15 to 20 feet wide, but with some pruning, you can keep it smaller if you start early enough in its age. This particular variety is actually an older variety, so I know that it says hardiness zone 5 to 9. Some of the new ornamental cherries that are coming on the market say 5 or 6 to 9. We're not actually sure. So this one, since it's been around for so long, is truly hardy to zone 5. So southern Wisconsin and along Lake Michigan, totally fine to grow this plant. Ornamental cherry trees are jugloan tolerant, so you can have it sort of near any walnut trees you might have, as long as it gets the full sun, 6 hours of sun a day that it needs. The one thing that has given me pause on some of the ornamental cherries and putting them in my landscape is it's not deer and rabbit resistant. They really do like to eat anything in, like, I consider anything in the fruit family, like service berries, they love to eat, apples, cherries, things like that. So if you do have this, I would definitely cage it for the first few years till it gets big enough that it can handle some grazing from deer or rabbits. And in winter, definitely put tree wrap or some like corrugated cardboard around the trunk just to keep them from stripping the bark as well. But this should be a nice hardy option. If you don't want the white flowers, you can go with this lighter pink. We have a new purple leaf sand cherry this year. A lot of people do like the old-fashioned purple leaf sand cherry that gets 10 to 15 feet tall without pruning, about 8 feet if you do prune it. This one is a dwarf, so it's going to be 3 to 4 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide at maturity. It will have the maroon foliage in spring as the kind of pinky white flowers emerge in May, and then it may fade to kind of that olive green color that the regular purple leaf sand cherry also fades to. The flowers will attract some early pollinators, which is always nice to have in the gardens. Hardiness zone on this one is 2 to 8, so it's really truly hardy. Full sun is best if you want it to have that maroon color longer. If you put it in too much shade, it will just be kind of that olive green color all season long for you. And purple leaf sand cherry is also jugloan tolerant, so you can put it near any walnut trees as long as it gets enough sun. Like I said, needs 6 hours or more, so don't put it underneath the walnut tree, but somewhere close by. It shouldn't affect the growth of this particular plant. So for years, I had people asking me if I could find a yellow climbing rose. And finally this year, I have a supplier who's offering golden showers. This one will mature 9 to 10 feet tall, about 5 feet wide. So if you do have this as a climber, make sure that you have a structure that can support that, and make sure that you are able to tie it up to that structure. They don't really have the tendrils like a clematis or a honeysuckle vine do, so you have to tie them up just to get them to stay on that structure. They are heat and drought tolerant once they get established. So first 3 to 5 years, just make sure that they get enough water fairly frequently, about 1 to 1.5 inches every week. And roses are generally not walnut tolerant, so you need to make sure to keep these away from any of the walnut or butternut trees that you have. They're also not rabbit and deer resistant. Even though they have thorns, rabbits and deer will insist on eating these, especially in the winter when they're looking for some sort of roughage. So the first couple years I would just fence it off, make sure that the critters can get to them, and then once they get big enough, then it may not matter as much. In full sun for roses, 6 hours or more of sun every day is definitely what is preferred. Golden showers is going to be hardy to zone 5 to 10, so it has a lot of heat tolerance for further south. The northern range is here in Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin area. I thought I would try a new snowberry this year. It's called Magical Avalanche. Mature size on this one is 3 to 4 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. You can see it gets a lot of white berries on there, and those will hang on through usually Thanksgiving, sometimes a little bit longer depending on the season. The hardiness zone on these is 3 to 8, so it's very hardy. I remember there was a snowberry hedge along one of the buildings at UW Stevens Point when I was there a good 25 years ago now. So they are hardy in parts of northern Wisconsin as well. Full sun to part shade is preferred. I have one of them growing underneath some of my walnut trees, so they get more of a full shade. It's really only like an hour of sun in the morning and before they get shaded. So they grow there. It's just not a really happy plant. So if you can give it 4 to 6 hours or more a day, that is probably preferred. Like I said, I have them under the walnut trees, so they're somewhat tolerant. Probably doesn't help that I have it in a shady spot, so it's not a super happy plant, but they will tolerate dry sites, but they also tolerate wet sites, so really not that picky about soil. And they are deer and rabbit resistant, so this is a nice one to have if you have those critter problems that a lot of people in Wisconsin do have. All right, this I believe is our only true evergreen, unless you count the boxwoods, which are the broadleaf evergreens. Um, this one is called Stonehenge. Last year we had Stonehenge Skinny, and I believe I have both on order. I know the Stonehenge Skinny was kind of a question mark. We weren't sure if it was going to be able to come in or not this season, so we'll see what comes in on the truck. This one is another tall, skinny evergreen. 8 to 10 feet tall, 2 to 4 feet wide. I believe Stonehenge Skinny is 1 to 2 feet wide instead. So it is a little bit wider, gives you a little bit more coverage. Hardiness zone on this one is 4 to 7. Full sun to full shade will go pretty much anywhere in terms of light requirements. It is not tolerant to walnuts, butternuts, so keep it away from the juglone trees that you might have. And also, the deer think they're candy, so if you do have deer, make sure that you spray and cage these guys up, because the deer will think that you just put out a nice buffet for them. Rabbits will too, but not quite as much as the deer will. As they mature, they do get some red berries, which are poisonous, so make sure if you have kids or pets that are curious about things in your gardens, keep them away from the yews. It does take quite a few years. Usually it's 5 to 8 years before they'll set berries, but just make sure that you're aware of that if you do have this in your landscape. And like I said, they're evergreens, so you're going to have this dark green foliage all season long, which is really nice, especially in winter that sometimes just doesn't seem like it wants to go away. All right, so the shrub that no one knows how to pronounce. Some people say Weigelia, some people say Weigela, some people say Wiggly. Anyway, this one I'm just going to call Stunner. This is a new one for us this year. 3 to 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet wide. It has that kind of chocolate brown maroon foliage, and then you have the kind of rosy pink flowers, trumpet shaped, to attract pollinators and hummingbirds to it. It will bloom in June, and then it kind of sporadically reblooms in August. It will not flower as much in August as it did in June, but it's still a nice flower to have around for those late season pollinators. Hardiness zone on this one is 4 to 7, and it is full sun is best for the purple foliage, otherwise you'll end up with olive green cast to it instead. As a note, it is not juglone tolerant. I've tried a couple different varieties of the Weigela in my landscape, and they last one season, and then the next season they never come back. So definitely keep this away from walnut trees or butternut trees if you have those. They also are not deer and rabbit resistant, although I will say they tend to only get eaten, at least in at my house. They got eaten in January, February, and then all season long they seem to be okay. We've had other customers though that have come in saying, July and August they're already getting kind of nibbled on. So if you do have this one and you have rabbit or deer problems, just make sure you spray it with Repelzol or whatever spray that you use, or you can cage them off the first few years just to, deter them from getting munched on too much. Like I said, they're a nice shrub to have to attract pollinators, especially with the trumpet-shaped flowers. Those tend to attract hummingbirds really well. All right, and that does it for the part two for the 2026 new woody plants. If you have any questions, you can call either store. You can also email us at kandagreenhouse@gmail.com. Like I said in part one, the plants will arrive sometime between opening day and anytime in June. It just depends on what the supplier has and when they're available. Some of our northern suppliers wait until later in the season, late May or early June before they send them to us just to make sure they're rooted in really well. Whereas some of our other suppliers are out west or down south and they can send those a little bit earlier. So I would call or email just to make sure they're in stock if you have one particular plant you're looking for. We can also pull them aside for you for a few days if you'd rather have that. So thank you very much and happy shopping.